Wagons are wicked. They're just so much better than SUVs. They're planted, they look bloody cool. But unfortunately, there haven't been many EV options. That is until today with this, the NETA S Wagon joining the fray. And it's joining the likes of the Neo ET5 Touring, but about 30% less in price. And this is not some cut price budget wagon. Oh no, this gives a bloody bruising to the nose of the ET5 Touring. And guess what? I've got the biggest smile on my face today. My name's Elliot Richards and this is the NETA S Wagon. Whee! So this is unusual. I have the car before it's been officially launched. In fact, it launches this evening. So there's some things I don't know. So VoiceOver Elliot is going to help me again with some of the facts and figures.
Hello Elliot, should we get on and do this review?
Thanks mate. Anyway, this is a brand from a company called Wagon, and this is called the NETA Wagon S, or S Wagon, whichever way round they want to call it. And they are a brand which are rapidly expanding. They've only been around for about 5 or 6 years, but they've just started launching in overseas markets. They're in Thailand in a big way already. But they thought, well, let's go overseas with a really, really cool car. Now they've had the S saloon car on the market for a while, but then they've decided to bring out a wagon. I was hoping to see this at the Beijing Auto Show this year, but they didn't bring it. But it doesn't matter because it's here right now in front of us. And oh my God, am I excited, because this is quite a looker. And it's definitely worth mentioning this. NETA are very well known for being affordable. You could say cheap, but I'm going to say affordable, because this is rumoured to have a price from about 166,000 to 220,000 RMB. That's 23,000 to 30,000 US dollars. And oh my word, do you get a lot of car for that money? Wagons are the way forward. Please let me know in the comments if you think otherwise, but I think estate cars, wagons, shooting brakes, whatever you want to call this, are so much better than SUVs. This bit, oh, looks so good. And this is like very surprising from NETA, because just a few years ago, NETA came onto the market with something which I can only describe as something which looks like it was one of the worst proportioned, worst looking cars I've ever seen. Like it was designed by a blind monkey with fingers made of sausages. It was just awful, but all of a sudden NETA got really good at design. And I honestly think this is one of the best looking cars on the market today. And as a brand, they have some of the most wild and interesting cars in China, and now very soon to be overseas. And this is by far the pinnacle of that. I mean, look at it. It's just so well proportioned. There's a few facts I want to tell you about the exterior here. It's surrounded by radars, lidars and everything else by a company called Hersai. There's about 30 sensors around the car. You can see one of them here, and a big unicorn up here, which makes it look like a bit like a Neo ET5 Touring. The similarities to the ET5 Touring are kind of everywhere, so you'll see them all the time. Up here is a proper roof rack, which I'm told you can fit bikes to. I'm not sure if on this version. And there's a full glass roof all the way back here into the wagon area. Wagon bum, like that. Drag coefficient of 0.229 CD, so a very slippery car. If you're sitting there at home wondering the size of the car, it's 4.9 meters long. But I really want to show you what's in here, because this is by far the most important point. This boot space is a massive 593 litres. If you press this button here, you can have a look as well. 500, you don't get that in actually many SUVs. Now, as you can see, it's flat, so it's easy to change your boots after a muddy walk, or for your dog to jump in, or put your shopping in. And there's loads of space because it's got a really good sized aperture. Now this floor is false, but under here is just some tools. However, if you fold these seats back, you get over 1,290 litres of boot space, and it's completely flat, which means you can make a bed and sleep in here as well. If you really want to go camping with this, you could. Also, it has V to L. There's also a 220 volt socket in here, so you can plug stuff in as well as USB, and you've got the handles here to let down, the back seats. This just makes so much sense. All automakers should be doing wagons, including Volvo. Where's your electric wagon? Because this is so bloody good. So there were rumours before this car launched that it would be using CATL's intelligent skateboard chassis. That hasn't been confirmed yet, so I don't know at this current time, but I haven't seen it in any of the press releases.
So whilst this specific car here today is not the CIIC or the CATL skateboard chassis version, that one, pre-orders have just opened, so it will be coming later this year.
But I do want to tell you what this does have. So this is the Max version. There's also a Pro version and an Air version as far as I know. Now this one is the four-wheel drive version, so it's got two electric motors, one of 200 kilowatts and one of 170 kilowatts, giving about 640 kilometers of any DC range, and that's using a lithium ternary ion battery. Now the slightly cheaper version of this, which is just rear-wheel drive, comes with about 510 kilometers of range, and that has a LFP battery, giving more than enough range and power. It's just so much for your money, just incredible. I can see where NETA have put in a lot of effort into this interior. The looks of it are fantastic. It looks very premium, but when you look closer, you can see that some of these are kind of cheapy plastics, fake carbon fiber. But the overall impression in here is that it's premium. So the things that I touch, like this, it's all like Alcantara. The seat is a leathery material with bolsters in Alcantara. I've got metal speakers over here. I've got electric door handles, and I've got these really nice kind of buttons down here, but they are plastic. So these are a bit like the Neo ET5 Touring or ET5. And that's where you see quite a lot of similarities in here to that ET5. I think the cup holders are pretty similar. You've got the charger down here as well. So there's a lot of similarities, but then there's a lot of really good differences as well. This screen is massive, 17.6 inches. Like I said before, bigger than my computer screen at home. I've got a sensible screen in front of me here, which just shows my speed, my trip, it's my odometer, and how many kilowatt hours I'm using per 100 kilometers, as well as my range. And I've got my heads-up display in front of me, which shows kind of similar information again. And what you kind of get in here is a premium looking, but perhaps not premium feel everywhere. So if you were to go massively premium everywhere, you go with the Neo. If you want to save a bit of money, you go for this. You know, things like this, which would be electronically adjusted in the Neo, are adjusted by hand in here. I don't really care. You only really adjust it once or twice, and then you leave it, and that's it. So doesn't matter if that's a handle for me. It's like 2 seconds of effort. I do have a fridge and cooling and heating function in here. It can cool for 24 hours with no problems. And there's no annoyances in here, like the ergonomics of this space, like it's well thought out. I don't bang my leg in here when I'm using the accelerator. You know, the pedals are in a good position. I've got a footrest for my left foot over there. And I've got my proper levers over here to manage, the windscreen washers, the lights, and my drive modes. And I do really like this steering wheel because it's got these kind of knobs on the side here, which when you're driving gives you a bit of firmness, a bit of grip, and the same up here. And I quite like how it's squared off at the top and bottom. Again, not having to copy everyone else, but kind of forging their own path. You can see where this is more affordable or cheaper than the ET5, but at the end of the day, you might be saving, I don't know, $7,000 or $8,000 over the Neo. And for that, you do get so much in here, and something which will definitely impress your friends and that you could easily live with for a long time. Love it. Now, it's important to talk about the tech in this car because it's packed to the gills with it, and it would be a shame if I didn't talk about it. So, first of all, just want to focus on the screen. Look at that, really bright and easy to use, very responsive, and quite intuitive to actually use. So they've got my settings here to change like drive modes and stuff, as you can see, fast at responding. Now this has the NVIDIA Orin chip inside, and the LiDAR is from a company called Hersey. So it's packed with tech, and in order to activate that self-driving, it's just 2 taps down on this stalk here. Now, self-driving from a company like NETA, you'd be wondering, oh, do they do self-driving? Well, they're kind of at the start of their journey, and they're still a young company, so they don't have as much data as, say, Xpeng or Neo, because they just don't have that user data yet. But the speed things go in China, we could easily consider this as one of those competitors, major competitors in the self-driving field in a few years' time. And I think a car like this, it just makes sense to have it, a highway cruiser, which will be blasting between Chinese cities and elsewhere. It makes sense to have that self-driving system. There's not much more I can tell you about it at the moment. I'm sure more details will come out in the coming months. Now, what do you get as a backseat passenger in here? Well, not a great deal, but it's okay. I get a magazine holder there. I have USB and USB-C chargers down there. I've got my own air conditioning units, I've got a switch for my windows, and I've got a door opening here, as well as all the kind of premium materials. I've also got my standard cup holders in here, so yeah, fine, and plenty of space for 3 passengers. Huge skylight makes a massive difference. It's kind of tinted, so it's quite dark, but it does make a difference in making this space feel much bigger than perhaps it is. My problem in here is the ergonomics. So how I'm sat, look, there's a lot of space under here, which means it might be a little bit uncomfortable because I can't push my feet forwards any further to give it support here. So I think on a long journey, this might be a little bit uncomfortable. This needs to be raised up, I don't know, 2 or 3 inches perhaps, or I don't know, maybe my seat needs to go forwards more, or the floor needs to be a bit deeper. But when you're compressing this into a wagon shape, that's kind of what you lose. And that's what I suppose SUVs have over this, is slightly more vertical space so that you can have more comfortable seats in the back. I don't want to not like this car, but that is a little bit of a problem. It's just not that comfortable for someone of my height. It needs a bit of work. I really, really want to like this, and the good news is I do really, really like it. This is the car which makes legacy automakers worry, because NETA's only been around for a few years, I think about 5 years or so. But already they're at this level of producing a car which is extremely comfortable, extremely competent at driving. It's really surprising and actually very worrying for those legacy automakers. And when you consider the cost of this car on top of that, you think this is outstanding value for money. Now, the interesting thing, this seat has got bolsters, but for someone who's a bit wider than me, I can feel them, but you know, I'm still rattling around in my seat. But the seat is quite firm, and I like a firm seat. Makes you feel a bit more sporty. In terms of like the seating position, the visibility, it's very good. No complaints there at all. These A-pillars are a little bit large, but I'm not really going to complain about that. The good news is the back window is not a vestigial back window, so I can see very clearly out the back there, helping with that visibility. I've got a proper mirror up here rather than a stupid screen, which don't always work. You know, it's got all of the right ingredients, and overall as a package, as a car, it's outstanding, really. I do want to talk about the suspension feel. It's firm. It doesn't feel like an SUV, because an SUV is quite top heavy, quite wobbly in the bends. This, absolutely not. This feels great going around corners. I feel planted, I feel solid, and that's one of the benefits of wagons or shooting brakes or estates, is that they don't have that SUV wobble. And this is why wagons, estates are so much better. They just get it right. Like absolute breeze going around corners, very nice feeling, not top heavy. It helps obviously with the battery in the bottom as well, but good God, this is a very competent car. And if we give it some beans, yeah, it's got the beans. This is the Max version, so it's got the dual motor. So obviously it can go. The way that power is delivered in this thing is basically the equivalent of those first few seconds when you're on the runway and the plane is about to take off. That thrust you get and the pushing back in your seat, that's the torque. This has the same feeling. I'd say the only slightly disappointing thing is the steering. Whilst it's direct and feels okay, it just feels okay. And I think that's the biggest problem with electric cars, is they haven't quite got the steering feel just right. I don't have that direct feeling of the road. I think as a highway cruiser, this is extremely good, extremely competent, and would be an absolute pleasure to drive, you know, miles and miles on the highway. If you're looking for a track day racing machine, this is not your car, but it does most other things extremely well. And so far, I'm really, really enjoying the ride. What a delight from a relatively new incomer into the electric car market. Oh, this is so good. What I can't get over is, it's probably telling me to pay attention to the road. What I can't get over is just how they built this car to this price. This is the same price as my Xpeng G3, which at the time was a reasonably basic model with no frills. This has got self-driving. Like, it's wicked. It's a wicked wagon. 166,000 for the base model, 222,000 for this model. Stupendously good value for money. Now I need to try NETA's self-driving functionality, because this has LiDAR in the roof. It's got about 30 sensors around the car, and this is from a brand which hasn't really developed this in-house. They've developed it with Hersey radar or LiDAR company. So it's another company's tech that they've input into here, then they've developed it themselves. And now self-driving is not the most exciting A, content, and B, experience, because it's like, it just gets on and do it. Every electric car in China with self-driving is very good, it's competent. So, you know, what are you watching this content for? Is for it to make a mistake or, you know, somewhere? Well, this doesn't have that, but it's very easy to use. Now, I'm about 30 minutes into driving this car. I haven't used it yet, but all I need to do is double tap down on the lever here, and it's in self-driving. I think this is actually just lane control at the moment. Yeah, so I can't test the full features of this. This car actually hasn't been released. I'm driving a unreleased car. It's being released at 6:30 p.m. this evening. So I don't have all the facts and figures because they've been not even embargoed. They haven't even been released yet. And of course, some of the car features. And some of the car features haven't been released yet either. So whilst this car is not perfect, there's so much to love. And I want to give a big hug to NETA for bringing this out onto the market to give another choice of wagon. In our SUV-obsessed world, we need more choice that isn't just sedan SUV. And this really brings something else into the game. And I'm so delighted to see it on the market at a really affordable price.